Hey everyone, if you've just bought a new CPU cooler, or maybe you've bought a used one somewhere, you might be wondering if it's guaranteed to fit inside your build. Like, will it be compatible with your CPU and your motherboard and the rest of your hardware? And the short answer is, it should fit in many cases, but often there are things you need to be aware of. And I know that's an annoying answer, but bear with me. For example, let's say you're doing a build and you've got your CPU cooler and you've got an AM5 CPU. What you might find is that CPU cooler doesn't come with the right mounting brackets for it. So even though technically you do have space inside your case for your CPU cooler to fit, and it doesn't bump into any of your other components, it might be that you can't physically mount it. And the same is true for Intel and AMD CPUs. They, have different mounting systems, and if your CPU cooler doesn't come with those brackets, you can't then use it. But that actually is a benefit of buying with Noctua, because they do send you brackets if you're a customer and you have the invoice and things like that. You just need to email them and say, hey, I've got an AM5 CPU and a really old CPU cooler, and they'll send you out a mounting bracket for that, which is really, really cool. The second thing to be aware of is that whilst the width of the CPU isn't necessarily an issue, for example, it shouldn't actually hit against your graphics card, even if there's a very little gap, the width and the depth shouldn't matter, but the actual height of it is. And that's because you've got your RAM. So often you've got your CPU and then your RAM slots right next to it, and actually your CPU cooler might clip against the RAM. So that's why you sometimes see CPU coolers advertise the RAM height clearance. So this is actually a really important point. If you've got some really tall RAM, like Corsair Dominator sticks, that might hit against some CPU coolers. Even if the CPU cooler has got that little cutout, which is for RAM clearance purposes, you might still have issues there. So you just need to double check what RAM you're going to buy and check it's compatible with the CPU cooler. But you also need to be aware of the height of the CPU cooler, because not all cases will actually fit all CPU coolers. For example, this particular case, I think officially it supports coolers up to 90 millimeters, although I think unofficially it supports like 130 mil coolers as well. But that is something to be aware of, because if you're doing a mini ITX build or some micro ATX builds too, the actual case might not support every single CPU cooler. For example, the Noctua NHD15, that's absolutely massive, and it's even bigger when you put the fans on as well. So you need to be aware of that fact, is that unless you want to leave your side panel off, sometimes your CPU cooler might not fit inside your case. The fourth thing you need to be aware of though is that in very rare cases, some mini ITX motherboards might actually clash with the CPU cooler. And again, this is quite rare, but if you Google your particular motherboard model and your intended cooler, you might find people on Reddit talking about the problem, if there is a problem. And this can happen where a motherboard has a very large VRM heatsink for cooling purposes. That can in some cases clash with the actual CPU cooler, so make sure you do your research. The next potential problem is that some cases don't allow you to access the backplate very easily, and obviously some coolers do require you to change the backplate to install the CPU cooler. So if your particular case is blocking that for whatever reason, maybe it's a custom case or an older one, then you might find that even if your CPU cooler is compatible with everything, you actually need to remove your motherboard to change the backplate, to then install the CPU cooler, which is a complete pain in the... The final point you need to be aware of is that whilst all-in-one coolers and liquid coolers are often better because they take up a lot less space, in some cases there can be problems because you need space for the radiator. For example, many CPU coolers need space for 360mm fans, so 320mm fans. And obviously if your case doesn't have support for that, then your CPU cooler won't fit because there's not going to be any room for your radiator. So you need to be aware of that. So hopefully that makes sense, but if you've got any questions, please drop me a comment. And if you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up button, and please subscribe to see more short videos like this. Thanks for watching.